Hello and welcome to your next tutorial in C#, and today we're going to be learning about data structures. Now what if you have a bunch of similar data and, well, we could just make a class, right? I mean, look at this. We have name, age, GPA, we want to submit that. It's related data, we could just make a class for that. Well, we're just storing variables. I mean, is making a class really necessary just for this? Well, then you might be thinking, well, I don't want to just go in this code and, for every person that we throw in there, we put in, string Adam, right, is equal to a quote, and then his age and GPA, and, make another string for Bob, and so on. I don't want to do that either. So, are we stuck making a class just to define three data type, three different pieces of information? No, instead we can make what's called a structure. Now structures do support functions. They can do a lot of what classes can do. You can have functions in there, you can make declare variables in there, but there are differences, and I will go over them a little bit later. So first let's go into our submit button and let's fetch the three pieces of information, shall we? So we throw in string name is equal to text name. Oh, is that not called text name? Oh no, I didn't preset these. Okay, string name, text age. I just came from doing my inheritance video. So there we go. So I'll go back in my code and text name dot text. There we go. And then did that work? Okay, it worked. So int age is equal to convert dot to int and text age dot text. So that worked. And double GPA is equal to convert dot to double text GPA dot text. There we go. Age. No, I don't want age. I want GPA. There we go. So text to GPA. Apparently text GPA doesn't exist. Did I not spell it right? Oh, I just put text GPA, not TXT. There we go. Okay, so now we have our pieces of information. So let's figure out how to create a struct. So we could just do that inside our form here, but let's separate it into its own class, its own file, basically. Even though it's not a class, I want to you to bear that in mind. So let's add a class, and let's call it applicant. I think I did an example like this in Visual Basic, something close to that, an applicant for college or something. Okay, so this is not a class, so we'll just get rid of this. And basically, all we're doing is writing in the namespace of our solution file. Just like up here, you see in our form1.c#, all our form and everything inside it is in the namespace of our solution. So that's all we're pretty much doing. Okay, so let's create our structure. So in order to create a structure, type out struct, followed by what you want to call it. I want to call it applicant. Opening curly brace and closing curly brace. And basically everything in there is what you want to be able to access. So unlike classes where you typically want to try keeping all your variables private, here you need to make them public because you're going to be accessing them directly from your other files. So, and you don't need to actually call them public because they're public by default. So I'll just throw out string new name, something like that. Oh, we can just call it name. I'll call it name capitalized. How about that? Int age, whoops, capitalized, and double GPA, semicolon. There you go. So now we have our three pieces of data. We didn't need to make a class just for these, did we? We could just make our data structure here for similar data. Okay, so now let's actually create our structure. Actually create a structure, or an object. Well, these aren't really objects, these are structures. And again, I'll go through the difference a little bit later. So first, let's type out the name. So applicant. There it is. So applicant. Then, should I just call it me? So Adam is equal to new applicant. There we go. And now we have good old Adam right here, but he's not being used. So how could we give him the piece of information that we threw in here? We don't have accessor or we do not have accessor or mutator functions like we did in a class. Now we could make them, but that's very unnecessary. Since all these are public by default, we can just access them directly. So what we could do is type out Atom dot and oh, I guess they're not public by default. That's a whoops. I guess they're private by default. Okay, now let's type our dot again, and okay, there they are. Okay, so let's throw atom dot name and set that equal to. Now, because these are variables, not methods, you don't put the or functions, you don't put the parentheses there, so don't worry about that. And we can set that equal to a string like that, but we already have a string up here called name, so let's call it name. There we go. Then down here we could go atom dot age, set that equal to age. And then we can go atom dot, whoops, that's not a dot, GPA is equal to GPA. So, a lot more simpler than a class. Classes are way more complicated than this is. But I'm really glad that I'm doing this after classes. So you see the hard stuff, then you see this, and it's a lot more straightforward. Because because this is just easier. Okay, so, do you think this will work? Well, let's make a message box and try to print this stuff. So the message box dot show. And I'll throw in, let's say, name, whoops, plus atom dot name plus, whoops, I'm going to go name colon like that. There we go. Plus, I should probably throw in environment dot new line, shouldn't I? Plus, then go on to the next line. So we have age plus atom dot age and what was it, environment dot new line. Sorry for this tedious, this really what should I call it, very, yeah, I guess tedious is the word I'm looking for. Just takes a while. Okay, there we go. So now I threw out all the information in this little message box. So now I can press F5, and if I throw in my information here, I throw in, I don't even have to put atom there, but I'm going to put atom there because I called that structure atom. So how old am I? 19, and throw out a standard GPA of 3.5. I click submit. We get atom, so the name's atom, age is 19, and GPA is 3.5. So there you go. We're basically fetching the information just like in a similar fashion as to a class. So you might be wondering, when should we be using structures and when should we be using classes, especially if we can use functions and methods inside structures as well? Well, there's just a little bit of differences. Structures are meant to remain small. You can usually have a function in there, but keep it, let's not have it big. Like maybe you only have one function in there. So let's make a function ourselves here. Let's call it public. Let's call it public double. No, let's call it public int. I don't know, double age, and that's all it do is double my age, for example. So let's have it return age times 2, something like that, right? So then I can go back to my form here, and I could throw a plus environment again dot new line plus age doubled, something like that. Even though this makes no sense, but this little thing that I'm doing right now, but there's a point to it. So I'll throw out atom dot and then double age. So I could do that. I'll click save. And if I run the application again, if I throw out like Jack 32 and oh, is my caps lock on? That's weird. And let's say his GPA is like a 2.0 or something. throw that out there. So all this is the same, but the age is doubled to 64 from 32. Basically, data structures are meant to stay small. If you only have a group of related information, then you can put it in a structure. But if you're talking about having a whole bunch of different, like, accessor functions and mutators, a whole bunch of member variables, and even more stuff than that, then put that in a class, because that's much bigger. So as you can see here, this is not an object, this is a structure. So what's the difference between an object and a structure? The only thing that you really have to worry about is if you were going to pass these, and we're not going to do it in this video. I might do it when I make my level 2 playlist for Visual Basic and C#. But the only real difference that you have to worry about is if you pass, like if I passed Adam here in as a parameter into a function, like maybe a function on this page or somewhere else. Structures are passed by value, or they're represented by value. So if you were to pass them into a function and manipulate anything inside of that structure, those just like by normal passing by value and passing by reference, those values will only remain changed during the lifetime of that function. Once you've left that function of which you passed this thing in as a parameter, once you've left that function, all those changes will be discarded. Now, objects, if you create an object instead, if you pass that as a parameter, those are by default and always passed by reference. Those are referenced values. So if you change anything, any characteristic about an object that you created, it's permanent. So bear that in mind. So that's your structures and your classes. That's another big resolution to come to when trying to decide when you should use a structure and when you should use classes. And the last thing I should probably tell you is structures also by how the programmers created C#. Structures take up less space in memory. So that's another reason for if you're just going to be staying small, a whole structure itself will take less space in memory. Just by doing this, it's less memory than creating a class. And yeah, they don't support inheritance either, so you cannot declare them as private since, not private, excuse me, protected. You can't go protected. So if I threw out like protected or something like that, this is not going to work because it's not going to work during like runtime or anything like that because you just can't inherit anything. So a structure cannot inherit from another structure. So that's just another thing you should bear in mind. We inherited from one class to another class in the last video, but a structure can't inherit from another structure. So I want you to bear that in mind. So just some small little things you should bear in mind, and that's all about what I wanted to show you this video. Structures are really nice just for small little things like this. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you, and I'll see you next time.